And welcome into the Thursday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you. It is, I would suspect, one of Joe Rexrode's favorite days of the calendar year. Joe Rexrode, good morning, live from Lexington, Kentucky. How we doing?
And who wouldn't it be? Wait. Whose wouldn't it be their day? You know what I'm saying?
You nailed it.
Yes,
Who
it
would
is
not
one of my
have
favorite.
this as one of their favorite days of the year?
Thank you for helping me speak English. That's right. It is one of the great days of the year, and I hope that if you're out there, we talked earlier this week about the vasectomy idea. That's a good one. You just use that one time. But other than that, I hope everybody's able to get in the hoops today. I'm super excited. We got Louisville Creighton starting the whole round of 64 tournament off today here, and that one is intriguing as heck, and I can't wait, man. It's going to be an amazing day.
Keyser, how we doing? What's going on?
Good morning, guys. Yeah, I'm doing well. Yesterday, had some pretty good news come out of my brother's camp. He is now engaged, fellas.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Got a little FaceTime last night real quick. So, yeah, good time. Good
How
time.
about that?
Now I can remember March Madness beginning, and maybe Tennessee goes on a run for him. I don't know.
We'll see.
So we'll have to find out.
We're going to begin to find out the answer to that today. Joe, a rough start for the SEC. Texas goes down to Xavier last night, 86-80.
SEC overrated. Get them out of here.
Guess so.
SEC sucks. Big East. It's funny because there have been commenters, I swear, like everything I've written this year that has anything to do with like the SEC being great, there's this one commenter is like, the Big East has the national champion, and like people get mad at the commenter. He's got to be just having he's a pig in slop right now with the Big East team beating an SEC team, man.
Just a great morning for that guy.
And by the way, there's news. Well, we were talking about this yesterday. It's like, I think Rodney Terry was in trouble at Texas, but it's like, man, you get in the tournament. What if you do something in the tournament? Well, news coming out this morning that Texas is moving on for Rodney Terry. Rick Barnes, one of his closest friends in the world. I thought maybe he'd be okay because Will Wade has been hired by NC State, and there's a lot of speculation that Texas wanted Will Wade. So we'll see who they go after, but it's too bad for Rodney Terry.
It is too bad for Rodney Terry. And you brought up Rick Barnes. The journey begins today for this Tennessee team in the NCAA tournament. They got Wofford today. I believe it's at 5:50 here local time. And it's obviously a 2-15 matchup. Tennessee, I believe, is around a 20-point favorite. It's gone down to 18.5 now. So I think it was 19.5 when it opened up. So Tennessee, an 18.5-point favorite in this one. They should take care of business against Wofford, but it's the NCAA tournament. We've seen crazy things happen before. And Joe, a question on the minds of a lot of Vols fans is this the year? Is this the team that has what it takes to break through the door and get to the Final Four if you're Rick Barnes and the Vols? Now, I think you and I would both agree that they had the team to do it last year, and then in the Elite Eight, they just got matched up with Purdue, who obviously posed a huge problem with the squad that they had last year, particularly with Edey in the middle of all that. So we've seen the bracket. If things go chalk, you're going to have to get through Houston to get through the Elite Eight into the Final Four. Kentucky could be a part of that path as well. Illinois could be a part of that path. Like there's some good teams you're going to have to beat if you're Tennessee to get through this. But as you evaluate this team, this bracket, and you examine the hopes for Vols fans to finally break through and get to the Final Four, what do you make of this team's chances to actually do it as the tournament gets underway today?
Yeah, I like them. I think I might like them to get to the Final Four a little more than last year, even though, again, there's a huge difference when you talk about having Dalton Connect last year. But the Dalton Connect difference, few things that are different the other way. One thing is that Felix Okpara, a little bit different. That with Jonas Adu, they had a little more scoring. But with Akpara, they do have more rim protection and a little bit more, springiness inside. Obviously, they miss at times a guy like Tobe Awaka, who has been very good for Arizona, who, by the way, is one of my Final Four picks. But think about last year, again, Ziegler, Gainey, and the way they were shooting. Now, again, we'll see. Today starts the NCAA tournament. Maybe those guys go 2 for 17 today, and we go right back to it. But they've been trending well. And I think the bracket's better just because, like you said, I mean, look, they had a chance to beat Purdue in that game. They were ahead. They had some runs. Purdue went on a 9-minute run per some, or it was about 2 minutes. But
a
but
9-minute run.
But it was a run in the first half that got them back kind of in control, and then it was a great game. I think that that Purdue team in Detroit, I would prefer this potential toughest matchup of this region, of this Midwest region, which is Houston, which is a really good team. If anybody hasn't watched Houston, I mean, they're good enough to win it all. But I think Houston and Indy, I just think, first of all, it's not going to be so. If I had to guess, if that game were to happen, I would guess the Vols would have more people there. And Detroit was a home game for Purdue. And then, I think Tennessee could beat them. So, Tennessee could also certainly lose along the way. But I just think the toughest possible matchup in their region is a better situation. So I think they have a little bit better chance this year to make the Final Four.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the shooting goes. Like, I think we've seen enough of Rick Barnes-led teams at this point, and we've seen, quite frankly, enough of this team to know that for the most part, you're going to get a good defensive effort from them. Like the defense is going to be there. They're one of the best defensive teams in the country. As you talked about, I think the offense has been trending in the right direction, and Ziegler is shooting the ball pretty well right now. Mike Wilson's talked about this a couple of times when he's been on with us. Like when you kind of dig through the numbers, it's actually analytically a more dangerous offensive team than it was last year when they had Connect, which is, I think, a very surprising to some people. I know it was surprising to me when I heard those numbers for the first time. So, I mean, you're looking at a team that was right on the doorstep, Joe, of becoming the first team in Tennessee men's basketball history to be a number 1 seed heading into the tournament. Now, they didn't get there, and they ultimately end up as a number 2. But this is right up there with the best teams that Tennessee has ever had. And just by the numbers in terms of their men's basketball program. Does that mean anything when tournament time comes around? Not necessarily, but I will say, like, I kind of like their draw in the bracket, right? Like, I understand that, Kentucky, they have not had success against this year. I think it's really hard for a team to beat another team, especially when you're basically evenly matched. I think it's hard to beat that team 3 times in a year. I think it is. So we'll see if we get that matchup and what that looks like in the Sweet 16. But all in all, I kind of like the way that the bracket has broken down for Tennessee. And look, like you said, Houston's a really good team. They very well could go out there and beat Tennessee. They could trounce Tennessee. I have no idea. But in terms of the 1 seeds, like I think you could have had a worse draw if you're Tennessee than Houston. So, look, the ability to get there, I think you've got it if you're Tennessee. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It's not going to be easy. But I do think this team has a chance to do it and break down the door and get to the Final Four. And quite honestly, there was a point, Joe, in the middle of the year where they went through such a slump offensively that I kept talking about they're going to get beaten like the round of 32. Like, this is a team that defends really well. Their offense is way too inconsistent, and they're going to get beaten like the second round by some team. And that could still happen. We'll see. But I do feel better about how they've played offensively down the stretch.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've said this back then, but when we going down to cover that Tennessee Auburn game, which was a total rock fight. And then, the Vols beat writers were like, yeah, this team will be like a 7 seed. They were not optimistic about where things were headed offensively. And then obviously that was a great game in terms of, it was a close game. It was a great defensive game, but it didn't lend any more confidence on the offensive side, but they have gotten better. And I just think the most important thing is to win today. I mean, SoCon teams are good, and usually SoCon teams are not seeded 15th. Wofford is a little bit, I mean, they were kind of a surprise team to win that conference tournament, but Wofford's a good program. and they got some good players. I mean, this is not an absolute just yawn and move on. But if Tennessee plays like it should and handles the business today, the most important player is Igor Milicic. And then look, I will say, when you look at the bracket, that late game, UCLA, Utah State, the winner gets, Tennessee if Tennessee wins. Interesting, Utah State has this swarming zone they play. They're a really fast team. UCLA, if you watch them this year, I mean, they're a 7 seed. They do not have 7 seed talent. They've got like a lot of good players, and at times they play really well. They got a lot of good players who piss off their coach. But I mean, like, whoever emerges from that game, Saturday will not be easy, and it shouldn't be. The round of 32 shouldn't be easy, but like, it's definitely not like just again, you think back to like that great Tennessee team of 19. I mean, Iowa wasn't even great that year, and that game was an absolute barn burner all the way down the end. I mean, it's so it'll get difficult right away. I'm trying to figure out which of those teams would be preferable for Tennessee. Probably Utah State. UCLA's got a 7-3 dude, like, who I think is going to be probably one of the dominant players in the sport next year. But he's starting to come on now, and so it'll be, it's certainly not a gimme to get out of Lexington.
No doubt. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. The tournament begins today. Is this the team? Is this the year that Tennessee breaks down the door, gets to the Final Four? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. More coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Come hang out with us today and tomorrow at Boombah's Pizza and Watch Bar from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Today we're going to be in Murfreesboro at Boombah's. Tomorrow at the Boombah's Spring Hill location. Come enjoy award-winning pizza, handcrafted beverages. You can win prizes, and of course, watch the basketball games with us as well. We'll be out there from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. today in Murfreesboro. Take your thoughts on the tournament, on Tennessee, 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. Throwing the question out there, is this the year? Is this the team that breaks down the door and gets to the Final Four for the first time in program history with Tennessee? They're a 2 seed. We've gone through their side of the bracket here. Obviously, some potential challenges along the way. Illinois is a team that they've seen already once this year. They got a buzzer beater win on the road back in December. Kentucky, they've played obviously twice this year in the SEC, lost both of those games. And then if you get through all those games, I didn't even bring up, Utah State, UCLA, Wofford, who they played today. You've got Houston potentially waiting at the end of that as the 1 seed in the Midwest part of the bracket where Tennessee is. So is this the year that Tennessee punches down the door and gets to the Final Four? Here's another thing that I am wondering heading into this tournament, Joe. Zakai Ziegler is obviously a beloved figure with that team, that program, and regardless of how this ends here, he is going to go down as one of the really, really good players in the history of the program, one of the most beloved people in the history of the program. I guess my question to you is this. If this is the team that breaks down the door and they get to the Final Four, and maybe they don't win the national championship, but they get to a Final Four, and he is what he would have to be if that's the case, and that is a huge part of them doing it. When it's all said and done, where's he going to rank in your mind in terms of players in the history of that program?
That's a great question. Zakai Ziegler is, he's not going to be an NBA player. I don't believe at his height. I don't think he's going to be in that league. I think, he's gonna be able to play basketball somewhere and make money. And sometimes people, people think of things like that. For example, we still talk about Ernie and Bernie, as we should. And Bernard King, one of the great NBA players people don't realize was a great NBA player, was a dominant scorer for the New York Knicks, before he blew his knee in the 80s. But you think about someone like that, who never won an NCAA tournament game at Tennessee. I think that's right. That maybe those guys won one, but they never, they never did anything in the NCAA tournament. I think my point being, like, sometimes I think with programs, pro careers end up sort of coloring how people think of a player. You know what I mean? At a college, like, even Peyton Manning was an incredible player for Tennessee, but is he not even more beloved because he's one of the greatest NFL quarterbacks of all time?
Yes,
I think so. So that's one of those things where I think Ziegler, there's a possibility that he's underrated and somewhat disrespected over time, when, to me, that's what this is. This is the Zakai Ziegler era. There was the Grant Williams era and there's the Zakai Ziegler era. And obviously both of them are really special and excellent. And consistent success at Tennessee, like this program has never seen. But if he can get them there as a senior, then I think he should be, that jersey number hanging in the rafters, and he should be considered one of the all-time greats. I think I already consider him that. And, we obviously look first at scoring, in basketball, but I'll go to a guy I covered who, by the way, whose pro career also has kind of elevated him over maybe some players who were better than him in college. But just in terms of absolute dogs who all they cared about was winning, and they will run you over with a truck if they have to beat you. And that's Draymond Green at Michigan State. And I think Zakai Ziegler a lot the same way, man. He's just, his teammates love him. He's a leader of this team. There's no question. And he's a great kid. It's funny because yesterday I got like 10 minutes alone with him, just like basically making fun of all the other beat writers and stuff like that. But but like on the court, he is an absolute killer. And defense just does same. This is where the parallel is with Draymond. Defense just doesn't get as much respect, doesn't get as much attention. I mean, he's out there for 36, 37 minutes, just absolutely hounding the crap out of people, and doing everything he can to win. And I just, I think that, like, your question is if they get to the Final Four, then to me, he's on the very short list of greatest players of all time in Tennessee. He should have been a first-team All-American this year. I'm not surprised he wasn't, because too many voters are like, oh, Braden Smith scored more points per game and made more threes. I mean, he's absolutely a better player than Braden Smith of Purdue. There's just no question. It's the game is both sides of the floor. But yeah, if they make that run, I don't think there's any question. And I think that this is why it's hard for me to bet against them making that run. It's going to be really tough to eliminate that kid in his last NCAA tournament.
Well, here's the other thing that I think separates him in this conversation, because I wonder how much we're going to see it moving forward here. He's kind of that rare breed that is a great college player. I'm totally with you. Probably is not going to play in the NBA and has been at the same place for 4 years, right? Like, that's becoming less and less of a thing. Like, less and less of, the norm in college basketball is a player being a huge part of a program for 4 consecutive years. Usually it's, if you're good enough and you're like one of those upper echelon guys, you're going to the draft, and like you're drafted after a year or two and you're going to the NBA. He's, because of his size, he's been a great college basketball player. And then we'll see what kind of his post-college basketball career looks like. But he's been a 4-year player at Tennessee in an era where one of the big complaints that people have, Joe, about college basketball is the turnover and the changeover with the roster is so great that you never really get attached to players, because by the time you do, they're gone. They're either transferring somewhere else or they're in the NBA. And he's a guy that's been here and is kind of embedded with this program and is a part of like the DNA of what Rick Barnes and Tennessee basketball is. So, like, how many more of those guys of kind of this makeup are we going to see? I don't know what the answer to that is. And I think that makes it even more special.
Yeah, well, and that complaint, I mean, Tennessee fans, even apart from him, can't have that complaint, right? I mean, think about the Barnes era. You got Schofield now Schofield was there before him, but Schofield went the whole distance. Grant Williams went 3 years. Josiah and Vescovy did the full 5.
Yeah, like the one real guy is Connect, but the 1 year was so amazing. It's like, okay, cool. Look at that.
Yeah, and then of course you got your people who Connect as the portal guy, and then Kennedy Chandler is the one and done kid who frankly should have stayed at least another year, but that happens too. So you've got some of that, but yeah, like you've had players to be attached to, even like old Fulke, man. You got Fulkers. I mean, I think to me one of the arts of being a college coach is finding those players who are just not quite NBA players, right? But they're really good college players. And then again, now, and this is where I do think, like, I think that we'll have some more stability. We'll see how everything shakes out. But, then you get those guys and you pay them and you keep them, I mean, you retain them. Yeah. And I think the SEC this year, you look all over the league. I mean, Bruce Pearl told me Janai Broome could have gotten like, I think he said like $400K more to go somewhere else, but they kept him. He wants to win a championship. It's a better spot for him. They've developed him into a player. And this league is full of teams that retain guys. And so maybe there will be more of that moving forward.
Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, man. So I'm a little bit nervous. Like, I think overall last year's team, I probably would have, I don't know. If you're just saying swap out Dalton Connect with Lanier, then it's not even close. But I think Gainey got better. Meshack got a lot better, and then Milicek's pretty good. So I think the team as a whole is a lot better than it was last year, even losing Connect, because those players elevated. Jordan Gainey, I mean, that's a huge jump from how big of an impact he's played this year. So I don't know. I'm with you, man. It's almost hard to pull against them at this point. It sucks because I feel like Houston is I don't know. I don't know, dude. It's tough to tell. It's the Final Four, probably not, but I think they can get right back to where they were. So I don't know, dude. It's going to be tough. It's a tough bracket. It's a real tough bracket.
Thanks for calling, Adam. We'll take your thoughts on Tennessee, 615-737-1025. Our phone number is this the year that Tennessee breaks down the door and gets to the Final Four. Plus, what's going to happen with Rick Barnes as they move forward here, too? We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Make sure you tune in to 94.9 The Fan for Vanderbilt women's basketball as the number 7 seeded Commodores take on number 10 seed Oregon in the NCAA women's tournament tomorrow at 4:30. Pregame beginning at 4:15. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and 949thefan.com. The tournament getting rolling today for the Tennessee men's basketball team as they take on Wofford later this evening around 5:50 local time. We've talked about the bracket. Is this the team that is poised to break down the door and get to the Final Four for the first time in program history? Joe, how do you view the Rick Barnes part of this as we head into yet another tournament here? Obviously, they make a deep run last year and they get to the Elite Eight. The knock on him has been the lack of NCAA tournament success and the inability to break down that door and get to the Final Four. How do you view him and kind of where he stands right now in his career heading into this run today?
Well, first of all, for people who aren't familiar with Rick Barnes' history, I will tell you that in San Antonio, Texas, which is the site of this year's Final Four, I covered the game in which Rick Barnes and his Texas Longhorns got to the Final Four in 2003 with TJ Ford as an All-American. He has reached the Final Four. Now, one is not enough given his success. I think he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, I believe, and he's a great coach. But obviously, in this sport, tournament success is, look, that's the top barometer, right? And obviously he has had a lot of teams that have famously, not gone far. And you have the year with Kevin Durant, and you don't do anything with that. And there's been other really loaded teams at Texas that he had that just got bounced too early. I think that he is. I think he's answered a lot of that at Tennessee. Overall, when you talk about multiple Sweet 16s and an Elite Eight, and he's had some disappointments too. But this is not his performance at Tennessee. Tremendous overall, way beyond program history overall, and even his tournament performance has been good. Obviously you want to get that Final Four, and this is a great opportunity. I think it's fair to speculate Rick Barnes, and I'm sitting here talking about him, and I don't have in front of me exactly how old he is, but I think he's right around 70.
He is exactly 70.
Okay, there you go. With Ziegler, being a senior, with Meshack being a senior, those two guys, just tremendous, best defensive duo in the sport. Is it possible that Rick Barnes could, this could be the swan song for Rick Barnes? I don't think you can discount it. Doesn't seem like there's any real strong indications of that right now, but I don't think you can discount it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The Ziegler part of it, we've talked about that. Like if they, I was talking with somebody yesterday. If they go on and win the national championship, does he just call it a day at the end of that? If it's anything short of that, does he do it? If he gets to the Final Four, does he call it a day at the end of that? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I think, just watching him, he still clearly seems to enjoy coaching, and he has built a program at this point that I think the expectation is that they're just going to be a perennial power every year, right? As long as he's the head coach, they're going to be near the top of the SEC. They're going to be a high seed heading into the tournament. And then we'll see, what sort of what the tournament success looks like there. But he's built a really good thing. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see here. There's eventually going to come a point, Joe, where whether it's this year or not, Tennessee basketball has to find life without Rick Barnes. And I guess the question at that time is going to be, has he elevated this thing enough to the point where when the next person takes over, they can continue to try to replicate the same success? It's going to be difficult to do. But look, Rick Barnes, I think everybody, even the Rick Barnes haters in the past, would probably have to agree to this now. He's clearly the best coach in program history. Go look at the numbers. It's not it's not close. Like he's the best coach in program history. So I'd be interested to know like his view. Like, has he thought about that heading into this? If it's anything short of a national championship, would he actually retire after that? I'd be interested to see what he thinks on that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like certainly if they win it all, I mean, man, what a great way to drop the mic, right? Now, I will say that, you know, I've had some people say to me inside the program, what's he going to do? What do you think he's going to do?
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, he loves hoops. He loves all this stuff. He loves the job. He loves young people, you know, and it's not like it's 70 years old that, you know, that especially as I advance in age, I'm like, man, you can't trying to tell me like 70 years old is that old, you know, can take it easy here, you know? So look, he could
looks
have,
great.
I mean, he's doing great. He could have a bunch of years ahead, you know. This is the thing with college with stuff like this, and it's kind of the same way with senior assistant executive producer Tom Izzo. You know, college coaches they hate this stuff, this talk, because it's used against them in recruiting. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's always like, well, Rick's not going to be in there the whole time, you know. And so it's like, so you're already like fighting that, even if there's some truth to it, you're fighting that. But yeah, look, I mean, I could see Rick Barnes going several more years, and that would be great for Tennessee. You know, when he does hang it up, is a Rick Barnes guy going to get the job? That's another big question. He has, I mean, he's got Kim English at Providence, Michael Schwartz now job, Rob Lanier has moved on to head coach job. He's turned out head coaches from, you know, from his tenure here. You know, and I think if any of them had a significant, you know, they've done well. I mean, Michael Schwartz actually had a really good year for East Carolina, but, you know, are any of them going to be, you know, at a certain level where it's like, yeah, this is definitely the guy, or is it just going to be a pure like, no, go out there and just, you know, just get the best coach?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. In the meantime, you know, can the pieces fall in place here for him to put together? Like, I do think it would be a shame, Joe. Like whenever his Tennessee career is said and done, if he gets through it and never makes the Final Four, I do think that would be a shame. Just in terms of like they've been so consistently good, and they've been a team that's been so consistently at the top over the last few years here. To at some point not have broken down that door would be, I think, really disappointing. So I'm hoping that this is the year that he breaks down the door and gets through there. Are they ever going to win a national championship? I don't know. I mean, I think they probably had some teams that have been good enough to do it, and just matchup wise, it hadn't worked out that way. Like there are plenty of teams on a yearly basis, Joe, that are good enough to win a national championship that do not get to the Final Four and sometimes don't get out of the first weekend.
No question. My first assignment for the Tennessean was Middle Tennessee. What is it? 9 years ago. 9 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a great Izzo team. That was like the last team that didn't get a one, and they could have won it all. And boom, they're out. It happens all the time. It's really hard to get to a Final Four. I mean, I agree with a lot of what Adam said in his call. First of all, Gainey, I think, is a huge point of optimism. He is balling right now, and that's a big deal to be able to, you know, to bring him off and have him get buckets from him. But I again, I would rather Houston be my one than Duke. I would rather Houston be my one than Florida. And I think I might rather Houston be my one than Auburn. I mean, it's close. You know, Auburn is a huge weekend here too for them. They got to get themselves turned in the right direction, and they're still the team that has the best resume in the sport, which means they're a great team. I think Tennessee's in a pretty favorable spot. Now, again, Houston's great, but you know, we'll see. You know, will Houston even get to that Elite Eight? That's the thing. I mean, you know, we know as everybody fills out their brackets, there's just going to be some stuff that none of us could have guessed. It happens every year in this tournament.
And it will happen likely by the end of the day today. Like that's just
Probably
how this tournament goes. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, it's time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things and your worst things on our text line. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst.
You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. I believe in miracles. Yes! Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
It is time for the best and worst things in sports this week. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Yeah, it's very simple here. This is the best thing in sports. So for me, there is no worst thing in sports this week.
Wow.
It is a beautiful, it's a wonderful life, folks. It's a wonderful life. It's a beautiful thing. The NCAA tournament, enjoy it. Welcome to all of you who don't follow college basketball all year. I can give you some bracket pointers if you want, although I probably won't. But this is the best thing in sports. There is no worst thing in sports. There can't be anything bad in the world when we have the NCAA tournament starting today.
Rexrode's getting more excited as each minute goes by here in the program.
Just
today.
gyrating.
He is gyrating.
Easy.
That used to be in the promo. Long time ago.
Maybe again now. Keezer, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Yeah, real quick, I saw that EA Sports is now offering student athletes $1,500 to opt in for this year's NCAA football game. I believe last year it was $600, so they got the game back up. So
got a raise.
Student athletes getting a little bit of dough there. Yeah, not too much. People in the comments, I was noticing that they were like, "This is pretty laughable." But they also get royalties off of this, so kudos to them and getting that done. So
that includes like the backup center too, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
There's a lot of guys who are like, okay,
I'll take it.
I'll take that for
absolutely. My worst in sports, just Aaron Rodgers. Come on, man. It's time to make up your mind. This is just kind of weird. I saw he was on the beach in Australia or something like that last week, just kind of contemplating life. So I just think they need a hard deadline. Let's move on and let's just keep going.
Rodgers catching some shade. Better hope he doesn't come here.
That's
He'll
fine.
hear that. He'll be mad at you.
He'll just have to go in the Kentucky caves for his darkest retreats.
I didn't think about that. There's a lot of caves around here.
Yeah, he totally
big cave system in this area, Joe, where he could be pretty comfortable.
Actually, that's a good point. I can't believe that we never thought about that.
Like the Tuesday off day, he could go.
Yeah, what's
Mammoth
the spot
Cave.
He'd
get lost.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mammoth Cave in there. He'd be wandering around.
Kentucky has the most caves or something like that. Yeah.
Just absolutely rolling around in those caves.
Wednesday presser rolls around and he's not there for his showdown with Kuharski. Like, where's Aaron? What happened to Aaron?
He's on Pat McAfee in a cave.
Could happen. My best thing in sports, I'm with Joe. These 2 days specifically. Now you could go the whole tournament, but these 2 days, Thursday and Friday, to me, when you're getting things kicked off, are awesome. And yes, the basketball games are great, but it's really just kind of how it's laid out, Joe. Like basically from 11 o'clock this morning until late tonight, it's just basketball that you're surrounded with, and it's high level basketball. I'm looking forward to it. Even somebody like me, who I would not say is a huge daily college basketball fan, as we've discussed many times here on this program, days like today and tomorrow are 2 of the best days of the sporting calendar year. So I am all in on watching some basketball today. Speaking of basketball, my worst thing, Joe, my beloved Miami Heat. They've lost 9 in a row, including a nice buzzer beater last night at the hands of the Detroit Pistons, to get to their 9th consecutive loss. It's the longest losing streak that they've ever had with Eric Spoelstra as their head coach. And, I've been saying for a couple years now, it's time for Spoelstra to take over for Pat Riley and do his job in player acquisition, even though he's a great coach. But you need somebody else in there making decisions for players. And they've waited around too long to break up this core, and this is the end result here. So you've got 9 consecutive losses, and they're just hanging in the wilderness.
Yeah, and we both agree. Spoelstra is a hell of a coach.
Yes.
I don't think there's any question about that. Is it possible that he gets he ends up taking the fall on this?
I would be stunned.
Ugh.
I think they know what they've got in him.
Yeah. Pat, hanging up, man.
Craig on the text line says Tennessee has the most documented caves of any state. Wow.
Really?
They told Aaron?
My goodness. So, well, that's the thing. Aaron's probably more of a deep cut guy anyway, right? Like, and I'm not saying that there aren't, but I just always think of those Kentucky caves. Like, I just drove by them on the way to Knoxville the other day, you know? But we got some more like a little unknown little caves and stuff like that. That might even be more exciting for him.
Yeah. I mean, got another texter. Josh on the text line says Lost River Cave is in Bowling Green. Super quick trip up from Nashville. I actually officiated a wedding at Lost River Cave in Bowling Green.
Really?
Yep. So I can give Aaron a tour.
Wow.
I mean, look, Big Joe's not letting it die. Like he's not signed anywhere yet. So I guess until he signs, Big Joe's just going to fight the good fight that the Titans just need to bring Aaron Rodgers in and make him the quarterback.
Hey, maybe we've been sitting here talking about Cam Ward. Maybe they've just been playing the long game, knowing that Rodgers either wasn't, was going to mess around or teams weren't going to give him enough, and all of a sudden they're going to get him super cheap.
Maybe so. I got one text.
I'm here for it.
That says the worst thing in sports is Joe's opinion that Jordan Love, Jared Goff, and Justin Herbert are better than Baker Mayfield. This from Kevin on the text line.
What's your opinion, Robbie?
I would take all those guys over Baker Mayfield, but Baker's good.
Yes.
Although, Herbert, I'm starting sour on Herbert.
Okay.
He's got all the ability in the world, but like at some point, don't you actually have to do something, right? Like I know that Harbaugh came in and Harbaugh's a good coach, obviously, and they made the playoffs and then he stunk it up. So like, don't you have to do something at some point?
Yeah, no, look, totally fair. It is absolutely totally fair that that we question Justin Herbert as an elite guy, because that's where people have tried to put him, right? They've tried to put him in that top tier. No way is he there, but like no one's trying to put Baker there, are they?
I don't think so. I mean, Baker had a great year. Baker is he's a great fit for Tampa Bay. They are the fact that they've gone from Brady and they've settled in and landed him, they're in a much better spot than I thought they'd be post Brady. JC in Goatsville says the NCAA tournament rolling into the Masters is the best time of year. The more golf talk we can get on here, the better off we're all going to be. Rexrode's fired up.
I know that to me is always like, it's like when I shed a tear, it's like, oh my God, this is over. And now people are talking about golf. Oh,
hey, the Champions Dinner menu that Scheffler threw out there looked awesome. Little burgers, some Texas chili. You'd like it.
Champions Dinner?
Yeah. You have the Champions Dinner. He's the defending champion. So you have the Champions Dinner to kick off the Masters every year.
Oh, so he's trying to make it all like just like a picnic with baked beans and
pretty much, yeah,
chips and like a big pop, like a big Faygo pop or
some
something.
Skillet cookie, yeah, like chocolate chip, yeah, good stuff.
Okay. By the way, Teresa Walker and I had an elite meal last night here in Lexington.
Really?
Yeah, elite steak here in Lexington. So there you go.
There you go. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. A lot of discussion on the wide receiver front for the Titans. So who should they target? Who, if you had to pick one, which wide receiver would you bring in if you're a Titans fan? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Thursday morning. We are taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Predators head coach Andrew Brunette will be with us later this hour at 7:30. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports for his weekly visit at 8 o'clock. We'll get into the Titans, the NFL draft, all things NFL with Charles a little bit later in the program as well. Rexrode live from Lexington, Kentucky, as the NCAA tournament begins today. Tennessee in action later tonight against Wofford. We'll get back into that a little bit later in the program. Joe, a lot of thoughts about wide receiver yesterday when we had Kuharski on the show. And there's not a ton of great options that are out there and available at this point in NFL free agency. You still have Stephon Diggs, who's coming off the torn ACL. You've got Tyler Lockett, who has been released by Seattle. You've got Cooper Kupp already landing back with the Seahawks after being released by the Rams. So we've gotten a lot of messages over the last couple of weeks of people who wanted Cooper Kupp. He is gone. He is in Seattle. So Diggs is out there. Lockett's out there. Amari Cooper is out there. And I've said, I think based on where the Titans receiver room is right now, I feel like they need to take a shot with one of these guys, be it a Cooper, a Diggs, a Lockett, whoever. Just because right now you're looking at that room, it's Calvin Ridley, it's Bryce Oliver, it's Van Jefferson. Like, it's not overly inspiring what they've got in that room right now. They're going to draft somebody. We'll see what that ends up looking like and where they do it in the NFL draft. But I still think a free agent wide receiver or two would be a worthwhile pursuit. So of the players that are out there and available at wide receiver, Joe, anyone in particular that you'd like to see the Titans target and sign in free agency?
No, but they have to sign someone. So, the answer is somebody. Like Karski said yesterday, Lockett, at some point his price comes down, right? So if that gets down to the point where it's real value shopping, sure, give that a shot. I see that Stephon Diggs is visiting with the Patriots. I would not have necessarily put Stephon Diggs and Mike Vrabel together, but Vrabel's out here making moves, man. I don't know. That's
the Titans back together pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, Diggs is still, it's like the thing about free agent receivers right now is, I guess if you're a free agent receiver looking at the Titans, now you could look at the whole thing and say, okay, it's Cam Ward. So it's kind of, what do you think about Cam Ward?
Right.
So if some of these guys look at Cam Ward and they're like, okay, yeah, that guy absolutely is going to be a dude in this league. Maybe you feel better. It has been this, who the heck is our quarterback? Like, why am I? So let me go to this terrible team without a quarterback, an offensive line. It's just not attractive. So maybe, not that it's 100%, but maybe the fact that it looks that way might entice some people. Although still, if I'm a veteran receiver in this league, and it comes down to money. But I mean, if I'm a veteran receiver in this league, I don't know that I'm necessarily signing up for, trying to grow with a rookie. But yeah, we get to this point here in free agency, Robby, and it's guys who their choices are more limited than they probably hoped they would be, and their money's more limited than they hoped they would be. And so that's when you can get in there and get someone. You got to get somebody.
Well, it was reported that Rondale Moore was on the Titans' radar and was supposed to be in for a visit yesterday, and then he ends up signing in Minnesota. That is your boy going back to the draft. So you would have loved that. Now, obviously, injuries have been a huge problem for him. He missed the entire year last year, but he ends up signing in Minnesota, which, he'll probably go there and stay completely healthy and have 800 yards receiving next year in that offense. So that'll be fun. But, so they released reportedly, Garofalo put it out there that he was supposed to visit with the Titans yesterday, and he ends up signing in Minnesota. So they're looking at wide receiver. We've had a couple people on the text line throw out Elijah Moore. Like, we've talked about him as well. Those guys are obviously not in the same group as a Tyler Lockett or a Diggs or an Amari Cooper, but they're also younger and guys that maybe you could get as ascending players who you hope can blossom into something with you. Like I think Moore the last 2 years in Cleveland has had basically 60 catches a year, right around 600 yards and a few touchdowns. So yeah, last year he had 61 catches, 538 yards, a touchdown. The year before that, 59 catches, 640 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So kind of right in that mold there.
Yeah, I mean, that's look. I think that's worth looking into for sure. But I feel like if you're Calvin Ridley, if you're really gonna put someone out there that is gonna hopefully you balance out Calvin Ridley and make give defenses something to think about. I think it's a drafted receiver, and there are some good options there. But again, then you just get into the whole, okay, well that would be a good thing to address, but then what the heck are you doing to rush quarterbacks this year?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a drafted receiver too, but I think if you're going 3 receivers right now, like if you're in a 3 receiver set, who's your 3 at the moment? Like it's Ridley, Oliver, and Jefferson. Like to me, you need a drafted guy and to go sign one of these guys to add to that, right? Like
yes,
there's a lot of work
question.
to do.
Absolutely. No, I mean you've got you need bodies in there, but there's no more impact. Like you're getting lower impact right now among the free agents. Some people surprise you, And again, like Diggs is one of those things where it's like, well, what if he is healthy? He's fine. All this stuff has humbled him, and all of a sudden it's like he's NFL comeback player of the year for somebody next year. I mean, he has the kind of talent that he would be one of those possible stories. I wouldn't bet on it, right? But it's possible.
He's the one that I think if you're looking for a guy out of Cooper, Lockett, and him, like he's the one that I would probably bet on if he's fully healthy being the most productive. Now he also, there's some headache clearly that comes with him. Like Buffalo, he had a great last year with Buffalo and had a great run with the Bills. And by the end of it, they were dying to get rid of him basically. Like, and they ended up being better for it, right? Like they had a better team that got to the conference championship game and really didn't miss a beat without him. So is that a commentary on like how difficult he is to deal with in the locker room? I don't know, but they kind of wore out his welcome in Minnesota and then eventually wore out his welcome in Buffalo. So, he wasn't around in Houston long enough prior to the injury to really know. So he's probably the one that I would say at age 31 could come back next year and still be really productive. But you're right. I mean, like Cooper's production fell basically by more than half last year when the combination of Cleveland and Buffalo. It kind of feels like he's starting to get to the other side of it. Lockett, Lockett, the one thing about Lockett that I think could make him a viable option for the Titans is he has been very, very durable throughout his career. And we have seen this offseason so far how important that is in terms of the decisions that this front office is making at the moment.
Yeah, I got a texter who says, "Woo, we going to be bad."
Yeah. Might be.
I mean, yeah, might be. Someone asked him about, is Burks gone?
He's not gone. Now he is coming off an injury. We don't know how healthy he is, but even if he is ready to go by the time the season goes, which is not a guarantee, by the way, but even if he is, then I mean, I'm not even factoring Treylon Burks into this discussion.
Yeah, I just think at this point it's like if around, well, okay, surprise us. That's where it is now, and that would be like I honestly like the practice stuff. Just it can't. It almost needs to be like embargoed from being discussed if he does something in practice, like an agreement among the Titans beat writers. Like we will not write about Treylon Burks having a good practice because it's. It needs to be embargoed, and then we'll see if he does it in an actual game. Another texter says, Diggs with a rookie QB is a hell no.
I understand
what you're saying, but you got to have people, with talent. It'd be interesting to see, like, if he's visiting the Patriots, obviously there's some serious interest there. I mean, if I'm Drake May, he's almost a rookie quarterback, is that something that excites you, or you worried about that. Again, like Diggs at this point in his career, like it's just first of all there's the injury, there's the production decline, but also there's just all the talk about what a headache you are. Sometimes people react to that in a good way.
We'll continue to take your thoughts on the receivers that are out there. Who would you like to see the Titans pursue that's out there and still available at wide receiver? Plus some rule change proposals specifically from the Lions that are very interesting. We'll get into that coming up next as well. Andrew Burnett at 7:30. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to 102.5, 106.3 The Game for Vanderbilt basketball as the Commodores take on St. Mary's in the NCAA men's basketball tournament tomorrow at 2:15. Pregame at 1:45. Coverage also available on the 102.5 The Game app and at thegamenashville.com. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll have Andrew Burnett coming up here in about 10 minutes or so. Preds in action tonight taking on the Anaheim Ducks. Joe, the Detroit Lions throwing some rule change proposals out there. We've talked about the rule proposal that the Packers threw out there of basically eliminating the tush push. I don't expect that that's going to happen, but we'll see what that ends up looking like. The Lions were busy throwing out some proposals, Joe. They had the proposal to eliminate automatic first downs for defensive holding and illegal contact penalties, as Trey Wingo threw out there. I think they've led the league in both of those. So they are throwing it out there to eliminate automatic first downs for defensive holding and illegal contact.
Which is a high school way to officiate, but yeah.
Yes, it is. And
you find that in high school.
They've also proposed a change to the playoff seeding format where basically you would, in each conference, the division winner with the best record would be the number one seed. And then after that, it's basically just by record. Like winning your division doesn't matter. It's by record. So, for instance, last year, I think it ended up like the NFC North had the Lions that were 15-2, the Vikings that were 14-3, and the Packers that were 11-6. Well, the Lions were the 1 seed, the Vikings were the 5 seed, and the Packers were the 7 seed. Under this new format, the Lions would have been 1, the Vikings would have been 3, and the Packers would have been 5. So, what do you make of, let's just take them a couple at a time. Let's start with the eliminating the automatic first down after defensive holding and illegal contact.
Hell no. Get out of here, Lions. Worry about not letting like a rookie quarterback score 1 million points on you and destroy you in the playoffs. Yeah, that's I know in Tennessee, I think in a lot of states, that is how high school is officiated. If it's whatever, 2nd and 12, you get a holding. Now it's 2nd and 2. It's not automatic. It should be an automatic first down. Get that out of here. The other one is really interesting to me, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. I have definitely. There are times when it's like, my God, that's just so stupid. Again, like last year, the Vikings having the year they had, and it's like if you're in a division that good and you have that record. Like you get screwed over, even though really your achievement, you could argue, is more impressive because you're in that division. And then this crappy division over here, just garbage. Whoever goes, 8-9 and wins the division gets a home playoff game. I mean, there are times that I'm like, I just don't like it. But at the same time, I do like the reward of winning your division. So I'm pretty torn on that one.
I like it. That is exactly how I do it. I would go by record. I think it was 2010, if memory serves me correctly. The NFC West was total garbage, and the Seahawks ended up winning the division with a 7-9 record.
Yeah.
They were the first team in the history of the league to win a division with a losing record, and they won. I want to say they ended up winning the playoff game after that too, but I don't specifically remember. But they won their division at 7-9. Look, I hear people that say there needs to be some sort of reward for winning the division. So I guess I get it from that standpoint. I guess the reward for winning the division to me would be like, hey, you're in the playoffs. I don't mind seeding conferences by record. Like I think if you're going by record, number one, you could end up that to me is the best reward for the regular season if you're going purely by record. And then number two, I think you could end up with some really fascinating playoff matchups when you do that too. Like, Vikings being the 3 seed, Packers being the 5 seed this last year. Like, how different would that have been? And like, honestly, like if you're a team that wins a terrible division, should you really be rewarded with a home game? I don't know. Like, I think I like that rule proposal by the Lions.
Yeah, you've talked me into it. Although, actually, I have another idea. Why don't we get a committee?
Oh yeah,
just get let's get a committee. We'll get like like Kaharski, Jerry Glanville, and some people like that, and just like pick the teams.
You start doing a reveal show like week 12 or something.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think you're right. It's just I do like I get a team being like, man, we won our division, but again, it's like I'm sorry, but your 4 teams in your division just happen to be terrible, and so all these schedules, obviously the schedules are weighted compared, to relative to how you did the year before, but you're playing teams from other divisions in your conference. You're playing one other division in the other conference. Certainly there are years where it's like, oh, great, we get to play whatever. I mean, like the NFC North right now would be a bad, matchup. I mean, that it was for the AFC South last year. So like that's going to affect your record. And then some years you're going to get the weak division and all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, I just think if you go through a schedule in this league and you have a top record and you're like 4 games better than somebody else, yeah, I think you should have the reward of a playoff game over that team.
I agree. And like, I'm not even saying that the division winner shouldn't make the playoffs, but like you shouldn't just be guaranteed a home game, right? Like I think being guaranteed a home game is ridiculous.
I think you have to be locked into a playoff spot per division. Otherwise, like, why even do divisions?
I agree with that.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm on board with it. It'll be very interesting to see the momentum and the discussion on this one. I'll be interested to see what Charles says at 8, about what he's heard about, what teams are saying about this, because there are some years, and again, this last year was one of them where it's like, man, this just doesn't seem right.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We'll be joined coming up next by Predators head coach Andrew Burnett. They're in action tonight, taking on the Anaheim Ducks. Check out this week's Nashville's Best Deal. It's from Streetcar Taps and Garden. Patio season is here. You can enjoy great food, cold drinks, and fresh air on Streetcar Taps and Gardens covered patio. Get half off a $30 gift card before they're gone at theGameNashville.com/deals. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Preds in action tonight, taking on the Anaheim Ducks. And to help us talk more about that, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in Predators head coach Andrew Brunette. Andrew, good morning. How are you?
Morning, guys. Doing good. Doing good.
Andrew, we know like during the course of a season, it's not like you've got all this excess time to just sit around and watch, college basketball. But are you a bracket guy? Do you fill one out? Do you just leave this alone? How do you kind of view the bracket part of this?
I think when I was a player, I was big time bracket crazy. Actually, now that you're coaching, you don't really have as much time to dive in. I did go to the SEC final. It was great.
Nice.
last Sunday. So I've kind of been watching. But yeah, I haven't filled it out yet. I think maybe I know some of our trainers run one, so I might have to jump in here.
There you go. Get involved. Got a couple hours to get it done. So, Andrew, we talked after the game the other night, and clearly you were disappointed with kind of feeding the transition game that we saw from St. Louis and not managing the puck properly. Like when something like that happens in the course of a game, what's your process like of going about trying to correct that and making sure that you're taking care of the puck a little bit better tonight against Anaheim?
Yeah, I mean, I think during the game, obviously, you remind them gently, firmly, continuously. We just had a hard time, and they're a fast team, but we made it a little bit too easy for them, and that's been the case in different stretches during the year where we've just, for some reason, we've lost, that extra layer. And I don't know if we were pushing for offense because goals haven't been easy to come by, but we've kind of lost that layer that's kind of, when we're on our game, allows us to limit those opportunities. And we were not layered properly last game or consistently through that stretch. So it was a little disappointing, especially we kind of went out, out west, and I thought we did a pretty good job of that throughout that whole trip. And, really it was kind of a war of attrition in the LA game. And I thought we really kind of buckled down in that sense and got home. And I don't know if we got a little loose or, you always worry as a coach when you get back from those West Coast trips that, you're just a little bit sloppy. And I thought we were a little sloppy at the wrong times against, probably the second best transition team in the league.
So 4 weeks to go, Andrew. Obviously, you want to play well, you want to win, you want to play good hockey. But what else do you really want to see? Maybe even on an individual basis here, as the season winds down.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked all year and still trying to find that identity, and we just have had a hard time grabbing a hold of it and keeping it. That you kind of get the feeling, kind of that little winning streak where kind of look like us or how I envision us how we would look, and then you slip a little bit last game. So we're still trying to find that consistency in our game. As for the individual, I think it's a really important time for a lot of different players for a lot of different reasons. You got some young kids that trying to make their mark in this league, Svechkov or LaRue, and on the back end with Stasny and Delgado, and they're trying to kind of make it still, and so they have a lot to play for. So it's really important that we get their eyes on them and put them in situations so we can really get a good feeling of where they're at, heading into the summer. And then some of the other guys, the older guys and guys that maybe haven't had the type of year they want, I think it's important for them. Can they find it? Can they get a good feeling of where their game's at down this stretch? And, it's hard, at this time of year, especially for the veteran players that are used to Stanley Cup runs and playoffs and all that stuff to find some motivation for them there's still lots to play for here a little bit that we haven't had this season we've wanted individually or collectively. And can we just leave this season feeling better as we head into the summer? And that's going to be hard. It's going to be a challenge for many different reasons, but I think it's really, to me, that's the motivation for our group going forward.
So, Andrew, you guys picked up Michael Bunting at the trade deadline, and obviously coming off the appendectomy, having never had an appendectomy, I would imagine that's very difficult to come back from. So it's a limited sample size at this point, but what have you made of his game so far? And when you look at him for the rest of this regular season and heading into next year and envision kind of what he could be for you guys, what comes to mind when you think about Michael Bunting?
Well, I think when you think of him, and we've seen flashes of it, I don't think we've seen his best hockey in his first 3 games, which is understandable, especially on the back-to-back and coming off the surgery. But I think he showed flashes where he showed a flash the other night where he's taking pucks to the net. He's getting those greasy areas. He's really good around that area. something that we need a little bit more of. So he's going to fill that profile for us. He has the ability to score goals. He's a smart offensive player, and he can hound pucks. And he's got a little bit of that relentless ability in the offensive zone to be on pucks and be in dirty areas and get them back. So that's what I'm looking for. I've seen it different stretches, and I've seen it throughout his career. So looking forward to getting to know him a little bit better, getting to understand his game here as we go.
Andrew, you mentioned Stasny, and obviously he had the pause, and I imagine something like that of just naturally going to set some things back. But what are you seeing from him right now, and what's out there for him moving forward in his career?
Well, I think for him, when he's skating, and we've all seen it, and we see it, it's pretty impressive. And we're just looking for a little bit of consistency in that. He just seems to skate one game and the other game he's not really using his feet, and he's not the biggest guy. And if you could skate the way he can skate, we want to see that every night. And that'd be a really important part of, one, the way we play. I mean, his profile fits exactly how we want to play. But he just needs to find the consistency, kind of like a lot of the young guys coming in. I think every call-up he's had, he's really good his first game, and then it kind of dips a little bit. And I think we've gone through it again a little bit this time, kind of took him out. I thought he's a little bit better the other night, but we need him skating. I think he's a game changer when he skates, and something we really need back there. So trying to find down the stretch, can he bring it every night? And I think it's going to be, for him, that should be his motivation. Can you get that consistency in your game to prove that you're not just an everyday player, but a very effective player in this league?
So Andrew, Zach LaRue got sidelined with the injury. He's been back in the last few games, and he was talking the other night about how he's been through a bit of a rough stretch offensively. He's trying to find his game again. What do you make of kind of where he's at in that process, and what do you want to see as you close out the regular season from LaRue specifically?
Yeah, I think for him, when he's, and I think you see flashes that we've seen it early. Again, he's another one of those young kids that are trying to be an everyday player and bring an element to the game every night. And I think he's had a really good year. It slipped a little bit before he got hurt. And, you expect him coming off his injury, it's going to take a little bit of time to get going. But I expect him to be, around the net, a little bit like Michael Bunting, where they're on top of pucks, they're a little bit physical, they're kind of under your skin, they get to the hard areas. And he, with Zach, he's got really good hockey sense. He's got really good, offensive instincts. And as a young player, you kind of want it, right away. And sometimes it takes a while. And for me, for Zach, because his sense and his feel of the game is so good, he's a very reliable player in all situations. And I want to see that part of his game grow. I'm not overly worried about the offensive part right now. I think that will come because I can tell he thinks it and sees it and has instincts around the net. We just want him to get that 200-foot game going and kind of get into the identity that he could be a big driving force going forward, the kind of the identity we want to play with, where he's relentless, he's on top of pucks, he's kind of in hard areas, good along the wall, all those things that make you hard to play against. And that's kind of what we're looking to get. And I think he'll get there. I think as a young player, you want it fast right away. And it's going to just take a little time. But we're happy with his progress. And like I said, he brings a lot of different attributes to the game. And I think he'll get going here as we go down the stretch here. It's hard when you miss the amount of time he has had and you throw him into the fire. And, you play a desperate St. Louis team that's probably on a different level than some of the other games we played of late, where they're fighting for their playoff lives. And we didn't match her desperation. And I think individually and collectively, we're not quite at that level. So we got to get Zach back to that level where he was before he got hurt.
Looking ahead a little bit here, Andrew, but obviously, slow starts your first two seasons. How much have you looked into the reasons for that? And do you feel like this group, because basically this core group will be back next year, can rectify that and have a better start next season?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something definitely is on my mind. I think there was probably a little bit of the year before, a new system, new kind of expectations, demands from how we want to play. So you expected a little bit of that. This year, for whatever reason, I think we thought we kind of had it figured out, or we thought it'd be a little easier than it was going to be. And obviously the all expectations, the excitement, we just didn't, we weren't quite, I guess, on top of our game when we started. And we had a hard time, and we kind of got punched in the mouth early and kind of staggered a little bit. So I think, obviously putting a lot of thought in, and I'll, unwind and decompress when the season's over and figure out exactly why or what I believe is why. But there's got to be some things changed a little bit over the summer, how we approach training camp. And we'll kind of go from there. But I really don't have a solution, but I know it's on my mind pretty much every day.
Well, Andrew, really appreciate your time as always. Good luck tonight against Anaheim, and we'll talk to you here in a little bit after the morning skate.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Yep, Predators head coach
Thank you.
Andrew Brunette, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. Take your thoughts on what Brunette had to say. Got the Rob rant coming up next. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports at 8 o'clock. All that ahead, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
Number 22 minutes roughing. For what? For being a Canadian Corey. I'll call the guy who retaliates every time. Call him for both. I've had about enough from the Clearasil kid. Get in the box, you pimple farmer. Hey, who wants to hurt their team more, boys? Keep it up and find out. I'm only taking one of you. 6 in. One more Neutrogena tantrum out of you and you're getting the gate, bud. Try me. Whatever. Don't take your Accutane rage out on me.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rob Rant here on Robby and Rexrode.
Disrespect.
I
This
thought so
isn't
too.
the Rex Rant. Nick Keyser, disrespect for Robby.
I thought so too. A lot of disrespect going on behind the glass over there. That's okay. I'll
Man.
overcome it.
You should even rant even harder now.
I might have to. So, Joe, I want to talk today about the National Hockey League, which in a lot of ways is like my baby, right? Like I've grown up in hockey. It's been my favorite sport for a long time. I've worked in hockey. I love the NHL. The NHL, I think right now, Joe, is probably in as good or better of a spot than it's ever been in. The ratings are good. Four Nations tournament was a huge success. I think everyone is looking forward to like best on best Olympic hockey next year. There's a lot of excitement around the game. The game's very fun to watch. The salary cap is going to go up wildly in the next few years, which makes, the league kind of signals the growth that's happening. There's some CBA talks coming up, and we'll see how smoothly or non-smoothly those go. There's one part of this, though, that I've had just about enough of that I think we got to fix, that apparently does not have any appetite whatsoever to being fixed, and that is the playoff seeding the way that it is. And if you're a Predators fan, you think back to when the Predators won the President's Trophy. They were the best team in the league, and in the second round of the playoffs that year, they ended up playing the Jets in a great 7-game series that they lost. The Jets were the second best team in the NHL by a record that year, and they ended up seeing each other in the second round. They changed this playoff format, I think, over a decade ago at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And it is, I understand what they were trying to do, right? Like they were trying to create rivalries, essentially, where you're playing a lot of games in your division, a lot of playoff series in your own division. And over time, that builds up a lot of hatred and you get some good rivalries that way. And I do think that part of it has worked to some degree. But I think we've reached the point, Joe, where the playoff format needs to be rethought here. And is it really serving the best interest of the league, the best interest of the fans having it this way? It used to be if you were the 1 seed in either the West or the East, you're taking on 8. If you were 2, you were playing 7, 3, 6, 4, 5. I don't think there was anything wrong with that playoff format. I like that playoff format. Gary Bettman was asked about this yesterday, and Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic put this out there about whether he was going to consider talking to the NHLPA when the CBA talks come up about going back to the old playoff format. And the quote from LeBrun was, quote, an emphatic no from the commissioner. He likes the format the way that it is now. The Oilers and the Kings have played each other in the first round of the playoffs, Joe, I believe 3 consecutive years at this point. And if the season were to end today, which is my favorite phrase in sports, they would be doing it again. This would be the 4th consecutive year that Edmonton and LA is playing in the first round. Now, some people may like that. Some people may say, you know what, that's cool. You're creating a huge rivalry between Edmonton and LA. We'll see if LA ever beats them at any point. I don't like that. I don't like the same playoff matchups every year. And I'll tell you what I really don't like beyond that part of it. Like right now, it looks like Winnipeg is going to win the Central Division. I mean, they're at 98 points. They got a 9-point lead on Dallas. So Winnipeg is probably winning this division, which means that the first round matchup in the Western Conference is probably going to be Dallas and Colorado, which probably should be a Western Conference final matchup, but it's a first round matchup. And you're talking about when you pull up the league standings, Dallas is number 3 in the league. Colorado's number 8. In the Western Conference, if you just went purely by Western Conference standings, Dallas is number 2. Colorado is number 4. They should not be playing each other in the first round. And I understand that it's going to be a heck of a series, right? Like, it's going to be great. If that's the way it ends up shaking out and it's Dallas and Colorado, there's a lot of juice there. They were both really active at the deadline. Mikko Rantanen plays for Dallas now. He used to play for Colorado. There's a lot of juice to it. You know where I'd rather see that juice? In the second or third round, deeper into the playoffs. Like, I think that serves you better as your sport. So the NHL is doing a lot of things right. Basically, like, they went on a run where from the Four Nations tournament to the TV rating, like, everything was going right for the NHL this year. The one problem that I still have that I think they got to fix, I'm tired of this playoff format. I think a lot of the fans are tired of this playoff format too, and it's time to go back to the old one.
I mean, I couldn't possibly give a bigger endorsement to what you just said. It absolutely needs to be seeded correctly, and like you said, I mean, in 2018, that absolutely needed to be the Western Conference Final, and you just can't. You end up with these matchups that happen way too early. And first of all, in this sport, I get the idea of rivalries, but again, you already have divisions where you play teams all the time. You might or might not end up seeing them in the postseason. You will at times. But like, the great thing about the Stanley Cup playoffs is, like, it takes about a game and a half for teams that hate the hell out of each other anyway.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's what's great about it. Is like, it doesn't matter who it is. Like, you put two teams together and they will be rivals by the end of their playoff series. And the idea that you have to continue to, like, manufacture that makes no sense to me. And it makes no sense to have teams that shouldn't be playing each other this early. I like variety. It's going to be a great tournament no matter what. And teams are going to rise and fall as rivals anyway, based on, like, how teams, like, again, at that time, I know what we were all talking about in this city 7 years ago was, man, the Preds and Jets are set up for just battle after battle the next few years, right? And it just didn't work out that way. I mean, I could not agree more with you. And it's just really disappointing that Bettman just dunks on it right away. Like, there's not even a thought.
Yeah, like, again, I guess it depends on your perspective. Like, there are some people that probably are going to love that you're probably going to see Dallas and Colorado in the first round, right? Like, it will be a heck of a series. I have no doubt about it. I would just rather see that series later in the playoffs where the stakes are higher. Like, to me,
they've earned it to be later in the playoffs.
Like, to me, you're not really rewarding these teams for the regular seasons that they're having. Now, I understand, like, the response to that could be, well, if you don't like it, go win your division. I get that. But, like, even in the East, right? So, like, first off, the Leafs always seem to run into either, like, Tampa or Boston, which is part of why they can never win playoff series. But, like, right now in the Eastern Conference, in the Atlantic Division, the top three teams in the Atlantic Division are Florida, Toronto, and Tampa Bay. It's probably going to be, my guess is Florida wins that division, and it's Toronto and Tampa Bay in the first round. Now, all three of them are separated by 2 points, so it could be any one of them that end up winning the division. But right now, in the conference standings, those teams are 3, 4, and 5. Like, they shouldn't be playing each other in the first round.
One of them shouldn't be bounced because of this format, but they will.
Right. So I think, I hope that between now and the CBA, first off, I hope the Players Association makes a big deal of this. Like, I hope that they kind of feel the same way that we do. Based on some players that I've just kind of randomly talked to about this over the last couple of years, I think they do feel the way that we do about, like, let's go back to just 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7. But I hope that a bigger deal is made of this by the time the next CBA comes around.
And that's the thing. I mean, this is never going to be top of the mind for the Players Association, right? I mean, it's about getting your, it's about getting your fair share of the cut and all that stuff. But yeah, I have to think, like, players and coaches across the league have to look at this and say, this is stupid. And way too often we have a team that's going to be immediately eliminated from the playoffs that has earned the opportunity to play someone weaker and advance.
Yep.
Or maybe not advance, but at least have earned a better matchup.
Right. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. We'll get into the Titans, all things NFL with him. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. As we do every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, fresh off being harassed by Joe Rexrode on our own personal text line. Charles, good morning. How are you?
And not responding.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Joe's like panicking. Sorry, man, I was on the phone.
You better have have you got some breaking news for us from your phone conversation?
No, Joe, I have another job. I was just gathering stuff for a story I'm working on. I apologize for
how dare you? How dare you?
Just absurd that you would want to work. So, yes. Charles, we were talking about some rule change proposals that the Lions have thrown out there, including the elimination of an automatic first down after illegal contact and holding penalty, which I just think is stupid. The other one of the playoff format, where it would basically be like the division, the division winner with the best record would get the number one overall seed, and then you just kind of go by record after that in each conference.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. What do you make of those two things thrown out there by the Lions and the legs that they may or may not have?
Well, eliminating the automatic first down for defensive holding and illegal contact is what you do when you have two rookie corners in 2024 who commit a multitude of penalties, and you're one of the worst in the league when it comes to that problem. That helps the Lions pretty quickly. That's just gerrymandering some rules to help improve a part of your defense that's sagging. I don't think that'll get any traction. I'm curious though to see about the idea of the playoff seeding, where it basically eliminates the idea of division winners automatically getting a home playoff game. And I think that's born out of Detroit going into the 18th game of the season, the week 18 of the season, the 17th game of the season against the Vikings, and saying, if we lose this game, we're going to have basically a dominant record in the NFC, and we're going to end up going on the road to play a playoff game. And it's just, I think they thought that was absolutely ridiculous. And this crops up every once in a while when we see a division winner where they have a losing record, or just a completely atrocious when compared against other teams in their conference record. If you're winning a division nowadays and you're going 9-8, and then you're hosting a home playoff game, I think a lot of teams think that that's archaic at this day and age. But the argument amongst other teams is there has to be some kind of reward for winning your division. That has to mean something in the NFL, and you should be rewarded for winning your division. So I'll be curious to see. I don't think it'll pass. It comes up, and you hear the arguments, and it's not like it's a new debate. But I do think that there's some merit to getting beyond this idea of, simply winning, particularly if you're in a weak division, simply winning a weak division, and then being able to host a playoff game when you have a team like the Vikings last year who, lose in week 18. I think, what were they, 14-3? What was the Vikings?
They won 14 games.
Yeah. You win 14 games, and then you have to go on the road to Los Angeles. You get butchered on the road against the Rams. And I think the Vikings, at the very least, thought that was tremendously unfair. The Lions would have thought it was tremendously unfair had they lost that game. And, so I look, there will be some teams that will agree with it. I just don't know that it'll have enough of enough backing across the league to change what's been something that's obviously been a staple. I'm curious, what do you got? I mean, do you look at that and do you say, well, we have to change with the times? Teams with the best records should automatically, get the corresponding seeds aside from, obviously the team that finishes number one in the conference?
I think so. I think they should do it. I mean, because again,
Really?
like Robby brought up like the Seahawks 7-9 division, where some divisions suck, man.
Yeah.
And so they get to play each other and prop up their records with the 6 games against the other teams in this crappy division. And some divisions just happen to cycle into like this 3 dominant teams. I mean, I think your best, overall, if you perform that much better than another team, how do they host you in a playoff game?
Yeah, it's real. I mean, I remember, what was the year? Remember when Brady tore his ACL and Castle came in? I think they won 11 games. I think they won 11-5.
They did. Yeah.
The Patriots, and they didn't make the playoffs. And I remember that year, it was just like, this is a joke. Like, people were like, this is a complete and total joke that Bill Belichick and an 11-5 team can't, make the playoffs because of ultimately how the seeding works.
But now, Charles, I think that's taking it a step too far, because I don't think that playoff spots should be taken away from division winners. That's what you would be talking about in that scenario, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, I think that's how you have to hash this out. Is, I mean, if you really were to affect how the seeding changes, you can't eliminate. But Joe, you just said it yourself, though. If a team wins a division, obviously it's not going to happen 7-9 anymore. But let's say it's 8-9. If a team wins a division at 8-9, what do you do then when you get to the point where
I still give them a playoff spot? I still give them a playoff spot, but they're seeded by their record. Yeah, I think that's a compromise, right? I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah, but I mean, so you have an 8-9 team, and then you have a team that has a winning record. Let's say it's a 10-7 team, and you're sitting there and staring at it. You're going, well, the 10-7 team, they're going to get lopped off. They're not going to make it because they didn't win their division. But we're going to put the 8-9 team into the playoffs. I mean, aren't you effectively undercutting your own argument? Because you're saying
I'm drawing a line somewhere. Look, if they want to get rid of divisions, get rid of divisions. I mean, but while they have them, I still
football, right. I mean,
I still feel like there should be. I think it's fair to have a reward for winning your division, which is you're going to be in the playoff, and then sometimes that's going to happen. But what we're talking about is you're talking 10-7, 8-9. What we're talking about is 14-3 and potentially 8-9, and then 8-9 hosts 14-3, right? Like that to me can be fixed. But that's just how I feel. I don't know, Robby. How do you feel?
No, I'm totally with. I think the reward, if teams are worried about the reward is you automatically get a playoff spot. I think the hosting a home game needs to be looked at.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with that compromise. I just I think the spirit of it, although it's not expressly stated, is you should be rewarded for your record. And not necessarily just winning your division, but you're still rewarding people. You're still prioritizing winning the division over a record. If you get to a point where you have a bad team,
that's true.
Not a bad team, but you have a mediocre division. Somebody wins a mediocre division, then someone who's, like let's look at the NFC North last year. I mean, it was a bloodbath. It was horrible. The top 3 teams between Detroit, Minnesota, and Green Bay. I mean, they beat the crap out of each other, right? And what if Green Bay, what if you have a team that gets left out in that scenario for somebody from the NFC South? No offense to the NFC South, but
right.
Obviously historically not been the greatest stronghold of a division the last couple of years. I mean, I hear you. You do have to, I suppose I understand you do have to draw a line. I think you get into these meetings and it's really hard historically to change something like that. And I think the argument that ends up happening is if someone says, okay, well, great, your division's up here, Detroit, you have the NFC North is dominant. Like, we get it. We understand where you're coming from. But guess what? You've had down years. The NFC North's been horrible, pitiful before, and it all evens out in the long run. You're going to have some years where you host a playoff game, or a team in the NFC North is going to host a playoff game, and your division's weak. This is just how it goes. So relaxed.
So, Charles, we're talking receiver options for the Titans, and we see Stephon Diggs meeting with Vrabel up in Foxborough. That sounds like an interesting pairing. On him in particular, because, I mean, or anybody out there that you think maybe is being undervalued at that spot right now? The Titans have to do something, but also Diggs in particular. Do you feel like there's enough game there and maybe possibly a humbling a little bit there with him that he could end up being one of those signings that actually next year turns into like a comeback player of the year type dude?
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. When you talk to people inside the Texans, he was not disruptive in any way. I think they were very, very happy with what he brought to the table. And I was there. It was funny because I was there for his first couple of practices, and you could see. I mean, he's that guy. He brought a ton of juice to practice. All the wide receivers really gravitated toward him, and obviously, it's not like, look, Nico Collins is an all-pro level wide receiver for the Texans. Tank Dell, very high thought of, obviously, season-ending injury last year, but you could see the other wideouts really lift, and there was, you just see guys compete. You see juice that just gets added to a group, and that was clear. And I think things were going not perfectly for the Texans, but they were definitely doing better until he suffered the season-ending injury. I don't know though. Coming off that, I don't know what does that look like now? He's 31 years old. I don't know when he turns 32, but he's up there. And when you suffer a season-ending injury, you start to lose some edge as a wideout. Where do you ultimately fit? I mean, you look at the Patriots. What do they have, right? I mean, the Patriots they have almost nothing at wide receiver. So to me, it makes sense to trend in that direction with him, because you have to make some kind of additions. And despite the fact they have a lot of money, these are going to be a lot of bargain basement sort of additions at this stage. But look, I still think he has something to add to a team. I don't know how he will function. Remember, the Texans, obviously, very talented team, not a bottom dweller. I don't know how he functions on a really bad team. I don't know how he functions with a really young quarterback that he's got to bring along. Not that Stroud isn't a young quarterback, but he's got a lot of polish, right? We know that about Stroud. Also, I don't know how he functions when he goes into an environment where he's unquestionably drawing attention as the number one receiver on a roster. He was not with Houston. I mean, he's facing singled up coverage because of the fact that Collins is drawing the extra safety attention. Even Dell is a guy that I think was drawing more attention away from Diggs. So, I still think he has something to offer to an NFL team. I just don't know what that looks like at this point in his kind of career arc. He's not just on the back nine. I mean, he's headed to the clubhouse. Like, it's especially after that injury. So it's tough right now with wide receivers. There's just everybody you look at. There's Keenan Allen, a ton of age. Amari Cooper. It's just a group where you see a lot of age, and you wonder what can we continue to. Kind of an interesting one. Elijah Moore is what, 20? I think he's like 25.
Yeah.
Like, he's in mid-20s, and when he came free and the Browns were able to get their hands on him, I remember there were a number of NFL teams that were like, man, really wish we could have gotten our shot at him. It felt like the Jets kind of ruined him a little bit, and that there was still a lot to work with there. And then he went into the Browns offense, and I remember that first preseason, he looked like a world beater. Like, you're like, oh my God, this guy's going to be, one of the best like slot type receivers in the NFL this year. And then he was just ruined. Like, Deshaun Watson was horrible. Everything went wrong for him, and he kind of went off a cliff. But he's the one where you're like, all right, he's young. He was highly thought of at one point, went through two really horrible situations with the Jets and Zach Wilson, and then with the Browns and Deshaun Watson and every other quarterback that rotated through there. So you kind of wonder, is he's someone, if he gets with the right offensive coordinator, the right quarterback, if maybe he could have some win in the sales that's still there. But the rest of the wide receivers, it's just, you're bringing somebody in, it's a body. You hope you can get, it's like if you can get a veteran in and get 800 yards of production maybe, 900 yards of production and 5-6 touchdowns. That's a successful signing. It's just, what does the rest of the offense around him look like? You're a young building team. I don't know what a lot of these these older guys have to offer to younger teams.
So, Charles, I know this is shocking, but we're waiting on Aaron Rodgers to make some sort of decision here, and it doesn't appear like it's going to be in Minnesota. So how do you view kind of what this now looks like, and when we could, at some point, I think, hopefully, get some sort of resolution on the Aaron Rodgers front?
Okay, so here's my thing with the Vikings. It's not done until, and I wrote this actually yesterday, it's not done until the Vikings sign a veteran backup quarterback, right? Like, it's not, I know everyone wants to say, oh, they're moving off of them. They're moving. I get it. I understand the question they asked, which I think the big conversation, and we may have talked about this last week, is like, can you bench this guy? Can he step aside for JJ McCarthy if the moment calls for it? And the answer was no. Like, if you're signing Rodgers, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, you're effectively shelving JJ McCarthy. You're like, we're putting JJ on the shelf, and this is going to be a year of development for him. Again, although he won't be injured, so hopefully we can get him some snaps and maybe some mop-up duty now and then. But that was the big conversation about Rodgers, and I think the Vikings knew we can't go down that path. We can't sign he who is unbenchable, apparently, at this point in his career. Now, that said, they haven't added another quarterback to that room. Brett Rippon is not what they're looking for to be a backup quarterback to JJ McCarthy. They're looking for an experienced veteran to come in and be a support role player and also available if JJ gets hurt. And the guy I would probably point at is Carson Wentz, because Wentz spent the 2023 season on the Rams roster, knows that offense that Kevin O'Connell's running. He's the most sensible sort of option in terms of having some experience, knowing the offense, being able to step in, and still having talent at the position if McCarthy were to go down. They haven't made the move to him right at this stage. And so I think that is, to me, the door's not closed in Minnesota until they make the move that closes the door. And the next couple of days, and projecting outward, watch Minnesota. Let's see, do they get involved with some of these veteran backups to go ahead and make that addition? Once they do, Rodgers is definitely out. I think until that happens, I don't know that Rodgers does anything, because I think he wants to be in Minnesota. I think he feels like, I don't have time. Like, why am I pressed? Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers need a quarterback. Where are they going? Like, what are the options that are on the table? They don't want Russell Wilson back. There are people in that building that do not want to coach Russell Wilson again. So what's their alternative? Kirk Cousins? Well, Kirk Cousins, you got to trade something to get him. And now you're going to have to pay some more of that salary for the Atlanta Falcons to give him up. The New York Giants, same situation. You're sitting there and going, okay, well, Russell Wilson's the option with the Giants. Beyond that, what else is out there? So, the Browns are now courting Russell Wilson because they can't get Kirk Cousins for nothing. So I think Rodgers' situation is he doesn't feel pressed to make any kind of a decision here, number one. And then number two, and this is I will be honest with you, this is speculation, because you talk to people that are close to him historically, they all say the same thing. He's not saying anything this offseason. The guy has been incommunicado with people he normally talks to. And the feeling is whatever's going on from a football perspective, it's Rodgers and his agent, David Dunn, are the only two people talking about that. He's not sharing it with anybody else like he normally does. That includes Pat McAfee, includes AJ Hawk. I mean, like, I heard like AJ Hawk's asking people what's going on with Rodgers right now, which says something. And so, but again, I think he's sitting there going, all right, let's see where the Vikings ultimately go with this quarterback situation. If they don't add anybody, that door's still slightly cracked. And if they do add somebody, then Rodgers' decision becomes like, where's my legacy at, and how do I want to finish this? And am I finished? I think retirement's on the table. And because New York's a rebuilding situation. He goes and plays for the Giants. It's not, You could argue, honestly, roster for roster, going into the situation you went into last year with the Jets, you could argue the Giants are worse off than the Jets were last year. And the Steelers, I mean, I think it looks enticing. I think, to me, that makes a lot of sense. But I don't know what it's like Looney Tunes between what DK Metcalf brings to a locker room, George Pickens brings to a locker room, and then Aaron Rodgers is going to be in there. I mean, you want to see Mike Tomlin lose his mind? Although Mike Tomlin kept Antonio Brown under wraps for years, and we had no idea what was going on there. So maybe to Tomlin, he's like, that's middle school stuff. I've seen the worst. No problem. So I don't think this is going to resolve. Personally, I don't think it's going to resolve itself really quickly because teams just don't have anything to press Rodgers right now to make a decision. They can't say, hey, man, either make this decision or we're moving on to what? Russ? Pittsburgh's not, they don't want to move to Russ. He knows that. And the rest of the teams are sitting there going, you're clearly our best option right now. We'll wait.
So you brought up the guy who I was going to ask you about, Charles. So now that we know, obviously, that Cousins, Atlanta decided to pay the money, is that with the idea that we are going to get something good for him? Someone is going to trade with him, or is it with the idea of Penix has an injury history? We still don't know that he's going to be great.
Right.
We're not paying him. We are paying Kirk, but now you have actual depth and insurance at QB. Which is their preferred path?
I think it's not so much about Penix and the worry about the injury history. I think it's what happened is the Falcons looked outward and they said, we can see there is more quarterback need than quarterbacks available. We're already on the hook for paying this guy $27.5 million in the 2025 season. Why would we cut him and let him go somewhere else and improve some other team on our dime? And the threat of the $10 million roster bonus that gets triggered for 2026 that became guaranteed when they went through the deadline. The way it was put to me is the Falcons are staring outward and they're saying, okay, if Kirk Cousins starts for a team somewhere in 2026, he's going to be making more than $10 million, and we have offset language. So if he makes more than $10 million, we're not on the hook for that $10 million. The salary's offset, and we're fine. We don't pay him anything in 2026, which I think is sound. And then I think when you go beyond the money, they're sitting there saying, well, if we put Kirk somewhere else, we still have to go find another backup quarterback. So what? Now we're going to pay Kirk and another backup quarterback on our roster? No, they just said, we're already paying the money. Arthur Blank met with Kirk. Kirk said, I want to go start somewhere else. Arthur expressed, from what I was told, yeah, we're not going to do that. Like we want to have you on our team. We think you're still valuable. You're a valuable member of that quarterback room. And I think the Falcons' approach to it is Kirk's not someone who makes waves. Like he's not going to go out there and throw a fit and become some huge problem, which might change, honestly, their outlook on it. But since he's not, they're like, all right, we'll keep him. And if nobody comes to us, if the Cleveland Browns, who I think they thought the Browns were lining up to sign Kirk, if the Cleveland Browns want to come to us and offer us a draft pick, and maybe we'll pay a little maybe they'll pay a little of that 2025 salary, and we'll pay $20 million of the 27.5. So we recoup a draft pick, and we only pay $20 million instead of $27.5 million. They look at that as like a winning strategy in this situation. And if they get quote unquote stuck with Kirk, they just shrug and say, great, we've got an experienced backup who maybe he's even better than he was last year because he's a year removed from the Achilles. I heard that because Kirk had spent so much time and effort working on the Achilles, he didn't have his regular sort of strength program with his arm, and that his arm kind of got tired down the stretch in 2024. If that's factual, it could just be an excuse. But if that's factual, maybe it's actually a better version of Kirk Cousins than they had in 2024. I thought it was unbelievable. I thought they were bluffing all along. And then a few days before the deadline, and I even tweeted this, after I had talked to people on both sides, I was like, oh, this is not happening. They're keeping this guy. This is actually they're going to roll through the Sunday deadline, and he's going to be an Atlanta Falcon. I think he'll remain an Atlanta Falcon unless somebody comes and says, we'll kick you a draft pick and pay a little bit of that 2025 salary. I don't think that changes. And even then, by then, if Kirk really hasn't pressed this issue, they may say it's not even worth the draft pick. We're paying him. He's on the roster. We've allocated the funds. And by the way, the person I'm told who is chiefly behind this is Arthur Blank. I heard it's like almost 100% Arthur Blank is the one saying that he wants to keep Kirk, and he's already, the money spent, we might as well keep him.
Charles, is Sparty going to go win this thing? I've got Michigan State winning in my bracket.
I'm not going to lie. I did the homer thing. I made Michigan State the winner. In my defense, I will say they did. It's a nice draw for them. I thought the bracket stacked up pretty well for them. They still can't shoot threes, which to me is, I feel like, you always run into teams that are like senior laden and then that can hit 3-pointers, and those teams end up being the ones that either pull the upset or end your tournament run. So unless they can figure out how to shoot threes, I think that I'm probably stupid and they're not going to win. But yeah, I did. I'm not going to lie. I did pick them to win in my bracket. Although I'm in Houston. I really like what Calvin Sampson does with his teams. I love the way Houston plays defense. I'd love to see a Houston Michigan State final. That'd be sweet. What do you guys think?
What a rock fight that would be. What a rock fight.
Yeah, it would be pretty horrible. Two teams just beating the crap out of each other.
I've got Sparty winning. Joe, who do you have winning?
Really?
Yeah.
Now, did you really believe that?
Yeah, I do.
Robbie, you think? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm about as much of a college basketball expert as asking me to talk about rocket science. So keep that in mind.
Okay, that's not great. So we can go ahead and move off of this conversation with Robbie bracket. Okay, Joe, Joe is the one out of the three of us that actually his bracket probably has most merit. Now, did you pick him to make the Final Four?
So I usually just do one thing, but because it's like I got family brackets coming at me. So I've had Auburn and Florida winning, and I've had Auburn and Michigan State in different brackets, but I don't have Michigan State winning. Auburn and Florida are my two champions. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most realistic.
I'm an SEC homer.
I swear. Well, yeah. I mean, come on, we've known that for a while now. I swore I wouldn't get sucked in by them. Like I complain to Joe about Izzo like all the time, and I swore I would never get sucked in by this guy. And yet here we are again as the season went along. I'm like, God, they got a lot of depth. Like this
can't escape him.
It's yeah. And then this time of year, even when they lose, the Wisconsin lost in the tournament, or the Big Ten tournament, I'm like, all right, that's fine. Like I don't mind. If you're going to suffer it and have to redial, do it in the conference tournament. So we'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think the way that college basketball stacks up now, and the way it feels so wide open, aside from Duke and obviously Cooper Flag, but you get the Cooper Flag injury, that kind of changes things. So I will say, what's this, the 25-year anniversary of Michigan State winning their title? And Joe, do you remember the star who got hurt that year that really kind of opened it up for Michigan State to win that year?
Yeah, Kenyon Martin. The Michigan State got that one seed because he broke his leg.
Yep, the number one pick.
We were both there, Charles.
Yep, that's right. Kenyon Martin, the number one pick in the draft, suffered an injury, and that opened up the path, I think, for Michigan State. So Cooper Flag, I mean, obviously he's going to play. That's what we're being told. But maybe that's the sign, right, Joe? Come on.
We'll see.
God,
We'll see.
Maybe.
Charles, enjoy the basketball.
Years, man.
Enjoy the basketball. I wish good luck to Sparty on your behalf, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. I appreciate it, guys. Have a good day.
Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. We'll react to what Charles had to say coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hey, if you need a bracket to fill out for the NCAA men's tournament, you better get on it. Head to theGameNashville.com, download, print off your bracket today. Presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by TheNewCumberland.com, Twin Peaks, and Bet365. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home with a $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Appreciate Charles Robinson for being with us in the last segment. Joe, very quickly, does not sound in Charles's mind like the Aaron Rodgers to Minnesota stuff is dead until they sign a veteran backup quarterback. He thinks that this could drag on a little bit longer. First mute of the day for Rexrode. He's still muted, tried to unmute, and then finally got it.
Is that a double mute?
You hadn't had one of those in a while for sure.
Yeah, the double mute. Yeah, mute. Yeah, it's funny. It's like basically the whole theme is, so I guess then you have to go with Russ, huh? Like just total dread thinking about going with Russell Wilson.
Teams are like, yeah, we'll wait.
That's
cool.
But it's also interesting because obviously, I mean, ESPN has reported like that's it. Vikings are moving on, and Charles is kind of saying, yeah, just wait and see here until they actually make the move that demonstrates officially they're done. Don't totally rule it out, which is interesting too. So I don't know.
Your boy.
And of course, and of course it's like, well, this won't wrap up anytime soon, which is great for Aaron because no matter what's going on, he's always lingering out there as a story in the NFL. Good deal.
We got Pred's Pick to Click coming up next. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025. We will get to Pred's Pick to Click. And our final thoughts before we enter into Rexrode's favorite day of the year, the beginning of the NCAA tournament. We'll get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Preds Pick to Click on Robby and Rexrode. Preds in action tonight taking on the Anaheim Ducks. And look, Rexrode's leading the competition. We can't have the listeners give up yet. We need to call 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. If you guess a goal scorer, you win a pair of tickets to a future Nashville Predators home game. Rexrode leading the competition with 15 correct answers. The listeners have 10. I have 7. Keyser has 4. No change from the standings last time out. Brady Shea, the goal scorer for Nashville. And none of us had Brady Shea. Michael Bunting, who I picked, Joe, did not score. He did have a penalty, which I believe he's got 3 of those in 3 games.
Yeah, it's too bad. I'm trying to think of deeper cuts as we go to finish it out since it's over.
Wow. Just calling your shot. Since I've already destroyed you all in the competition, trying to think of some deeper cuts there. I like it. With that in mind, let's head to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Eric to the program. Eric, good morning. Thanks for calling in. Your pick to click for the Nashville Predators.
Hey, good morning, guys. I'm going with Steven Stamkos.
Going with Stamkos. Thank you for the call, Eric.
Thank you.
So Stamkos, the selection. Rexrode, you are up first after the listener today in the competition. Your pick to click.
Well, I asked Andrew Burnett earlier about Spencer Stastny. Let's go there.
Going with Spencer Stastny. We'll see if he plays, but it could happen. All right.
Let's see if he plays, and then we'll see if he scores.
Stamkos, Stastny off the board. I am up next. You know what? Give me Jonathan Marchessault. I have not selected him in a while. I'll go Marchessault. Stamkos, Stastny, Marchessault off the board. Keyser, your pick to click.
Ryan O'Reilly.
There was no hesitation on that. Ryan O'Reilly, the selection from Nick Keyser, who I don't know has gotten a correct answer since November. He's got 4 in the competition, so good for him. Stamkos,
January.
Stastny,
I like the confidence, though.
Marchessault and O'Reilly off the board in the competition. Joe Rexrode, this is your favorite day of the year. You got the NCAA tournament beginning today. By the way, if you're looking for NCAA tournament updates, check in with us all day. 102.5, 106.3 The Game for updates of the basketball tournament presented by Toyota. Fuel your adrenaline at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. Also brought to you by thenewcumberland.com, Twin Peaks, and Bet365. You're going to have a front row seat, Joe. What are you looking for today beyond the obvious of Tennessee and Wofford?
Yeah, we'll cover in the Auburn and Tennessee pods here in Lexington. So, look, I expect both of those SE teams to advance out of the weekend. But Auburn, they've lost 3 of 4. They yesterday talking to those guys, like the whole message is you better be pissed off at this point. And so I kind of feel bad for Alabama State today. It might not go too well for Alabama State. Great win over St. Francis though. And look, Louisville today. I mean, they're gonna have people here, right?
Oh yeah.
And Creighton's good. I mean, Creighton has Ryan Kalkbrenner, 7-footer, 5th-year senior. Stephen Ashworth's a very good guard. That's a good first game. First game of the whole day is here. If Louisville wins, and Auburn should have no problem getting to Saturday. Louisville and a virtual home game against Auburn here Saturday. Oh boy, that could be real interesting. And then Tennessee, I think Tennessee should take care of Wofford. I think Wofford, a SoCon team, is a 15 seed. You raise your eyebrows a little bit. Usually they're more like 13 seeds. That kind of some people look to pick them. Wofford kind of surprised people in the conference tournament. They've got the granny free throw shooting forward, which Teresa Walker asked him a question yesterday. I said, by the way, I used to do that too in my high school career. So they got something in common. But Tennessee should handle today. And then UCLA and Utah State, very different teams, very different kinds of second round opponents. And if they're not challenged today, which is always possible in this freaking thing, then I think they definitely will be challenged Saturday. But obviously, you got games all over the place today that are. We're going to have some. I mean, Purdue High Point is someone asked earlier in the text line. That's my little upset thing I'm looking at. The High Point has a high-powered offense, and Purdue's defense is bad.
So are you just going to the arena after this and are going to be there until all hours of the night?
Yeah, I will be I'm not going to go right after this, but I'm going to be there in about an hour, and so I will end up being there for a good 14 straight. Yeah.
I can't think of anything you'd rather do.
I can't either. I'm in, baby. Let's go.
NCAA tournament underway today. Tennessee playing Wofford.
There you go.
Later today, and we'll see as we discuss to begin the first hour on the program. if this is the year that they can break through and knock down the door and get to the Final Four for the first time in program history. Hope everybody enjoys the basketball today. That's going to do it for us on the program. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Jason Big Joe up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.